Happy March. It's Peachy and welcome. With March comes Women's History Month. Let's take a look at a great woman from our past that no doubtedly paved the way for others. If you have not seen any of my other Women's History Month videos, check out the playlist. It should be popping up at any moment now. Eunice Carter made history throughout her life, but the crucial evidence she presented to New York State Special Prosecutor Thomas Dewey in the mid 1930s would result in one of the greatest prosecutions against organized crime in American history, sending mafia boss of bosses Charles Lucky Luciano to a long stretch in prison. Carter was born in 1899 in Atlanta. Her parents were social activists, and they instilled in her a sense of duty to serve while making a living as a social worker in New York and in New Jersey in the 1920s. She took classes at Fordham Law School and became the first African American woman to receive a law degree there. Her talents drew the attention of New York Mayor LaGuardia and newly appointed State Special Prosecutor Dewey in 1935. LaGuardia and Dewey hired a large staff to fight organized crime and selected Carter to work in the predominantly black area of Harlem. Carter thus became the first female African American assistant district attorney in the state of New York. Her boss was Dewey, who, while chief assistant U.S. attorney, had won a conviction against New York bootlegger Waxy Gordon in 1933, in whose 1935 prosecution of mobster Dutch Schultz crippled Schultz's operations. Carter's destiny would be to catch an even bigger fish among the city's mob bosses, Lucky Luciano. Luciano rose to prominence as a bootlegger for the Sicilian Mafia during Prohibition. In 1931, he eliminated the old guard Sicilians through murder and intimidation. He then created America's first national organized crime syndicate, the Commission, run by New York's 5 Italian crime families and some top Jewish mobsters, such as Schultz and Luciano's longtime friend, Mayor Lansky. By the mid 1930s, Luciano had his hands in multiple rackets, from drugs and illegal liquor to loan sharking, the numbers, and prostitution, either by overseeing them or demanding payments from the other operators. Many of Carter's cases as assistant district attorney in 1935 were brought against women charged for prostitution. As prosecutor, she noticed that some defendants were using the same bondsmen and lawyers and told similar tales while trying to beat their raps. Carter reasoned that this cast of characters meant that hoodlums perhaps controlled New York's prostitution as a racket. She approached Dewey, and an investigation by his office confirmed her theory. Racketeers were indeed deeply entrenched in illegal prostitution and collected 50% of their employees' earnings. Dewey ordered a raid of scores of brothels and arrested 100 illegal sex workers, several of whom agreed to testify about the mob's ties to the business. Luciano was charged with pandering on a large scale. His defense was that he was not directly linked to the brothels and was being railroaded by the prosecution. But Dewey, in a dramatic cross-examination of Luciano, asked how the rich mobster could afford an extravagant lifestyle on the $22,500 reported on his tax returns. The sensational trial ended in a guilty verdict and a sentence to 30 to 40 years for Luciano, who was paroled in 1946 and deported to Italy. Luciano's conviction, based on Carter's discovery, was considered the most successful court action against organized crime in U.S. history. It put a dent in the Luciano syndicates, illicit activities, and political corruption. In 1937, Dewey, then New York City District Attorney, assigned Carter to head his Special Sessions Bureau involving cases brought in municipal court. Eunice Carter entered politics in 1934 when she was nominated by the Republican Party to represent New York's 19th District in the State Assembly. The first African American to gain the Republican nomination for that office, Carter's campaign centered on the need to reduce the age limit for pension, enforce compliance with legal standards for tenement housing, and the continuance of unemployment insurance. She also opposed racial discrimination in public works employment. Carter narrowly lost by 1,600 votes. In 1947, Carter was one of 15 American women invited to attend the First International Assembly on Women in Paris to discuss human and educational problems affecting peace and freedom. In 1955, Carter was elected to chair the International Conference of Non-Governmental Organizations. 2 years later, she attended the United Nations-sponsored Commission on the Status of Women at Geneva, the European headquarters of the United Nations. While there, she was elected chairman of the Conference of International Organizations in consultative status with the United Nations. She also served on the executive committee of the International Council of Women. Also in 1957, Carter attended the International Council of Women on the World as representative of the National Council of Women of the United States. She was also active in the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and the National Urban League, the Young Women's Christian Association, and served as legal advisor of the National Council of Negro Women and field representative for the Manhattan Office of Civil Defense. Pretty interesting, wasn't it? I hope you learned something new, and if it wasn't new, it reminded you of this woman's great contribution. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever time you're watching this. Be safe out there. Bye for now.